more and more women are choosing lives that don't orbit around marriage or motherhood. They're not turning away from love or family out of bitterness or fear. They're turning towards something else, something inward, something often quieter but no less powerful. They are choosing to live alone, not in isolation, but in intention. Not in rejection, but in full ownership of their time, energy, and emotional landscape. For many of these women, fulfillment doesn't come in the form of a wedding ring or the word mom. Instead, it arises from personal evolution, from growing into themselves without external definition. It's found in meaningful work, in art, in silence, in adventure, and long conversations with oneself. It lives in the slow mornings, in the freedom to make or break routines, and in the deep satisfaction of being enough without needing to be everything to everyone. But even now, despite the language of progress that fills public spaces, these choices are judged, whispered about, side-eyed, condemned in subtle ways, through offhand comments, concerned relatives, or headlines dripping with pity. She's selfish. She's abandoning her nature. She regret this one day. She's not doing what women are meant to do. But pause and ask yourself, is that really fair? Must a woman earn her worth only through sacrifice? Are we only virtuous when we give ourselves away completely? Our time, our bodies, our dreams for the comfort of others? Why is it that when a man chooses solitude or ambition, he's seen as focused, driven, perhaps even enlightened, while a woman making the same choice is viewed as broken, cold, or lost? Maybe what's seen as rebellion is actually wisdom. Maybe choosing solitude is not an escape from life, but a turning toward it. Maybe women are not stepping away from love, but from the narrow definitions of what love must look like. To listen deeply to your own needs, to honor your emotional safety, to pursue what makes you feel alive, whole, and at peace. This is not selfishness. This is self-respect. And isn't that what we ask of everyone? To live with integrity, to follow their truth. Some women find that truth in marriage. Others find it in motherhood. But many find it elsewhere, and that elsewhere is no less sacred. The choice to live differently is not a threat to society. What threatens society is a culture that teaches women their value is conditional, that they must marry, mother, or mold themselves to a template to be seen as enough. But enoughness isn't earned through conformity. It's discovered in authenticity. And when a woman listens to herself, really listens, she's not rejecting her role. She's redefining it. She's saying, I am the author of my own life. And that story may or may not include the things others expect of me. To those who live outside the lines, your life is not a mistake. Your peace is not a problem. Your freedom is not a phase. You are not selfish for choosing yourself. You are brave. You are wise. And you are exactly where you are meant to be. Where does this judgment come from? For centuries across cultures, continents, and generations, the image of the ideal woman has been intricately woven with the identities of wife and mother. These roles were not presented as mere options, but as sacred duties, a woman's highest calling, her path to fulfillment, her proof of worth. She was expected to embody gentleness, patience, self-sacrifice, and endless care. Her strength was to be quiet and visible and in service of others. She was not meant to lead the story, but to support it from the shadows, from the kitchen, from the nursery. This ideal wasn't taught just once. It was instilled early, repeated often, and rarely questioned. It appeared in school books and bedtime stories. It echoed in the voices of mothers and grandmothers who had walked the same path, often without ever being asked if they truly wanted to. It was reflected in TV dramas, romantic comedies, and traditional rituals that celebrated a woman only when she was attached to someone else, Mrs. Someone. Her value was not self-defined, but measured by how well she nurtured others, her husband, her children, her family. Her success was not hers alone, but a reflection of how well she disappeared into the lives of those around her. So what happens when a woman says, quietly but firmly, I don't want to get married? She isn't just making a personal life choice. She's rejecting a centuries-old script one that told her who she was allowed to be. And that rejection, even when calm and respectful, is seen by many as a threat, a rupture, a rebellion. The system begins to shudder. And with that comes the backlash. People don't simply question her decision, they question her. Her character, her morals, even her sanity. They don't ask out of genuine curiosity, but with a tone of disapproval dressed up as concern. She's no longer just a person making a choice. She is a puzzle to be fixed, a warning sign to others. The questions start like this. But who will take care of you when you're old? Aren't you afraid of being lonely? Don't you feel empty without children? What are you even working so hard for, if not for a family? Why are you only thinking about yourself? These questions sting not because they're curious, but because they're laced with quiet accusations. They carry the weight of generations that obeyed the rules without question, and now feel unsettled by someone who dares to imagine life differently. There is a subtle but strong discomfort in witnessing someone who refuses to be confined. Her freedom becomes a mirror, and in that reflection, others are forced to reckon with what they never allowed themselves to want. The fear of the unfamiliar is powerful. It's easier to call. Choosing to be alone is not a crime, it's a conscious act. Let's be absolutely clear. Choosing to live alone is not an act of selfishness. It is an act of deep clarity, intention, and courage. It is not a rejection of love, or a dismissal of connection, or a declaration of isolation. It is, in many cases, a brave choice to live honestly, according to one's own rhythm, rather than perform a role that no longer fits. More and more women today are waking up to the truth that love, marriage, and motherhood, while beautiful for many, are not the only paths to fulfillment. They're not rejecting these things out of bitterness, trauma, or rebellion. They're simply refusing to chase them out of pressure, fear, or the belief that a woman's worth depends on her relationship status or maternal instincts. They're not giving up on family. They're giving themselves permission to question what family means to them. They're not running away from responsibility. They are stepping into the most sacred kind of responsibility. The responsibility to know themselves deeply, to honor their intuition, to protect their peace, and to create lives that feel true. And that is anything but selfish. In fact, it takes tremendous maturity to say, I'm willing to sit with myself. I'm willing to unlearn what I was taught about success, love, and womanhood. I'm willing to explore who I really am when I am not defined by what others expect of me. A woman can live alone and still be full of life, warmth, and connection. She can come home to an empty apartment and still feel surrounded by meaning and purpose. Her life may not follow the blueprint others handed her, but that doesn't make it any less beautiful. In fact, it might be even more sacred because it is entirely hers. She can be unmarried and still radiate love in how she listens, in how she shows up for her friends, in the art she creates, in the presence she offers to those around her. She can be child-free and still pour out fierce, nurturing energy into her community, her passions, her healing, her chosen family. There is this persistent myth that unless a woman is loving a partner or raising a child, her emotional gifts go to waste. But that is such a narrow view of love. The truth is, love is not confined to a romantic container, and nurturing does not begin and end with motherhood. A woman living alone can be a source of joy and light in countless lives. She can hold space. She can create safety. She can be the soft place people return to not because they depend on her, but because she knows how to be fully present without losing herself in the process. To choose solitude when the world tells you your value comes from being chosen is radical. It says, I choose myself even when no one else does. I believe in my wholeness, even if others don't understand it. That kind of self-trust is rare and powerful. We must stop equating solitude with sadness. For some women, solitude is freedom. It's clear. It's creativity. It's coming home. It's the quiet confidence of knowing that your life is not an accident. It's a masterpiece in progress. shaped not by obligation, but by choice. So no, living alone is not selfish. It is thoughtful, it is intentional, it is sacred. And the women who choose it are not lacking anything. They are full of wisdom, depth, love, and peace. They are simply no longer afraid to let that fullness be enough. Rebutting the natural law argument. Some critics say, a woman who doesn't marry or have children is going against the laws of nature. But this argument reveals a profound misunderstanding of what it means to be human. Yes, biologically, we are capable of reproduction, but we are not merely biological creatures. We are conscious beings. We are capable of reflection, self-awareness, intention, and choice. Unlike animals that operate purely on instinct, humans have the power to shape their lives based on values, desires, and meaning, not just biology. The natural law for humans isn't just about survival or continuation of the species. It's about the pursuit of a life that feels whole, honest, and true. For some, that means raising children. For others, it means writing books, building businesses, creating art, caring for aging parents, or simply living a quiet life close to nature. None of these choices are more or less natural. They are simply different expressions of what it means to be alive. Marriage doesn't guarantee happiness. There is a deeply ingrained belief in many cultures that marriage is the ultimate safeguard against loneliness, that once you have a ring on your finger and someone to come home to, you are protected from isolation, heartbreak, or the ache of going through life alone. This belief is so widespread that many people never even question it. It's accepted as truth, passed down from one generation to the next, repeated in movies, reinforced in family conversations, and celebrated in every wedding ceremony. Find someone, and you'll never feel alone again. But reality tells a different story. Because the truth is, many people feel achingly, silently alone inside their marriages. They share a home, a bed, even a last name, but not a true connection. Some haven't had a meaningful conversation with their partner in months. Some feel unseen, unheard, and emotionally neglected. Some spend years performing the role of a happy spouse, while their inner world quietly withers. The presence of another person in your life is not a guarantee of intimacy, safety, or understanding. And for countless women, the decision to marry isn't rooted in love, it's rooted in pressure. Pressure from parents who fear for their daughter's future if she remains single. Pressure from peers who post engagement rings and baby photos on social media as markers of success. Pressure from timelines that suggest a woman's value declines after a certain age. So what happens? Many women enter marriages because they feel they have to, not because they truly want to. They stay in relationships because it feels easier than starting over. They silence their instincts, compromise their values, and slowly lose pieces of themselves in order to fulfill a script they never wrote. And society calls that maturity. Society calls that stability. But at what cost? In contrast, a woman who chooses to remain single not because she hates love, but because she hasn't found a connection that feels honest, mutual, and grounded, is often labeled as difficult, picky, or selfish. But what if she's actually the opposite? What if her decision isn't rooted in ego, but in respect for herself and for others? She refuses to pretend. She refuses to play a role she doesn't believe in. She refuses to enter or stay in a relationship just for appearances, comfort. That's not selfishness. That's integrity. It takes immense courage to be alone in a world that romanticizes being chosen. It takes emotional strength to sit with yourself rather than fill your silence with noise. And it takes deep self-respect to say, I would rather wait for real love or build a life that's meaningful without it, than force something just to feel socially acceptable. A woman like that is not avoiding connection. She is refusing to settle for anything less than authentic connection. She doesn't fear partnership, she just knows that a real partnership begins with truth, not pressure. It's not about checking boxes or following timelines. It's about shared values, mutual care, emotional safety, and the freedom to grow together, not shrink to fit. We have to stop equating marriage with fulfillment and singleness with lack. Being in a relationship doesn't automatically mean you are loved well. Being single doesn't automatically mean you are unloved. Love is not proven by your relationship status. Love is proven by how you treat yourself, how you treat others, and how honest you are about what you truly need. So let's stop asking women why they're still single. Let's start asking whether we, as a society, have given women enough space to define love on their own terms. Let's stop assuming that singleness is a problem to be fixed and start seeing it as a powerful season of growth, clarity, and choice. Because a woman who waits for the right connection or chooses to walk her path alone isn't missing out on life. She's living it fully, bravely, and without apology. Being alone doesn't mean rejecting love. It's also important to clear up a major misconception. Choosing not to marry doesn't mean rejecting love or resenting men. Many single women are still in loving, committed relationships. Others are open to connection, but simply don't view legal marriage as necessary. And some, yes, have decided to focus inward for a time on healing, growing, or building the life they want first. None of these decisions come from hate. They come from discernment. To love others, you must first know and honor yourself. That's not selfish. That's emotional maturity. A broader perspective, all choices deserve respect. None of this is to say that marriage and motherhood are wrong or outdated. In fact, for many women, these experiences bring immense joy, purpose, and transformation, and that too is a beautiful choice. What we must advocate for is the freedom to choose without fear, shame, or stigma. The real issue isn't which path a woman takes. It's whether she was allowed to take that path freely, without being bullied by cultural scripts or paralyzed by the fear of being judged. Every woman deserves the dignity of living according to her truth. Whether she wears a wedding dress or walks barefoot through life alone, her worth is not up for debate. Conclusion: choosing yourself isn't selfish, it's courageous. A woman who chooses not to marry or have children isn't denying love. She may, in fact, be expressing it by caring for her parents, by giving back to her community, by living in alignment with her deepest values. She may not be what society has always expected, but she is what the future needs: a person who listens, who reflects, who lives not by default, but by design. Her choice is not a rejection of tradition. It is an invitation to evolve. And perhaps what we need now is not more women fitting into boxes, but more women brave enough to break them with grace, integrity, and compassion. Because in the end, what's truly selfish is expecting someone else to live a life that's not their own just so we can feel comfortable. So is she selfish for not getting married? No, she is honest. She is awake. She is intentional in a world that often rewards autopilot. She is not dismissing love, she is simply refusing to chase a version of it that costs her wholeness. She is not rejecting tradition out of spite, but out of awareness that tradition, when unquestioned, can become a cage. She is not running from responsibility, but walking toward a deeper one, the responsibility to live truthfully, bravely, and well. Her choice may make others uncomfortable, not because it is wrong, but because it is free. And freedom always threatens the systems that rely on silent obedience. But her life is not a rebellion, it is a reclamation. She is not waiting to be chosen. She is choosing herself. She is not withholding love. She is redefining where it lives, how it flows, and who gets to receive it, including herself. She may never wear a white dress, but she wears her peace. She may never be called mom, but she mothers ideas, art, causes, and communities. She may never introduce someone as her husband, but she introduces herself with clarity, with presence, with pride. And that is enough. enough for a meaningful life, enough for a joyful life, enough to stand on the earth not needing permission to belong. Because when a woman lives in alignment with her truth, not what she was told to want, but what she deeply, quietly knows she needs, that is not selfishness, that is sovereignty. And it is one of the most powerful things she will ever claim. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.